For generations, the moon seemed like a world we had already figured out. A quiet sphere orbiting Earth, covered in craters, ancient scars, and the remains of a violent past. It looked familiar enough that many people assumed its biggest mysteries were already solved. But recent developments are beginning to challenge that belief. China's latest lunar findings have reignited global attention toward the moon, not only because of what was discovered, but because of what those discoveries could mean for science and humanity's future in space. This moment did not happen suddenly. China's progress in lunar exploration has been building for years through a long-term strategy. Orbital missions were followed by landers, then historic achievements such as reaching the far side of the moon and returning samples back to Earth. Step by step, these missions formed something larger than isolated successes. They created a sustained effort aimed at establishing a lasting presence in lunar exploration. That larger context is why the latest findings attracted so much attention. The moon is no longer viewed only as a scientific destination. Increasingly, it is being seen as a place with future economic, technological, and strategic value. Reports connected to exploration near the lunar south polar regions pointed toward unusual mineral signatures and evidence that the moon's history may be more complex than older models suggested. Scientists have traditionally described the moon as geologically inactive, a cold and ancient world whose major changes ended billions of years ago. But if deeper mineral diversity and magnetic variations exist beneath the surface, then the moon may still hold clues that reshape our understanding of how rocky worlds evolve over time. That possibility transforms the moon from a familiar object into an active scientific frontier once again. The South Polar region has become one of the most important targets in modern lunar exploration for a simple reason: resources. Water ice is believed to exist in permanently shadowed regions near the poles, and evidence supporting those deposits continues to grow stronger. In space exploration, water means far more than survival. It can provide drinking supplies, oxygen, and even fuel when separated into hydrogen and oxygen. That changes everything. A reliable source of water could help turn short visits into long-term operations. Lunar bases become more practical. Infrastructure becomes possible. The moon shifts from being a destination into becoming a platform for deeper exploration. This is why global interest has intensified. Programs around the world are no longer focused only on returning astronauts to the moon. They are increasingly focused on staying there. The conversation now includes resource access, infrastructure, research stations, and future industry. Ideas once associated only with science fiction are beginning to enter long-term planning discussions. If usable resources, rare materials, and strategic locations exist on the moon, then early access could become extremely important in shaping future space activity. The concept of an off-world economy is no longer purely speculative. Not because it will happen overnight, but because the foundations are slowly appearing. A future lunar economy could involve construction, mining, storage systems, fuel production, and manufacturing beyond Earth. Instead of launching every resource from our planet, some materials might eventually be produced in space itself. And if that happens, the moon becomes the first major stepping stone for humanity's expansion outward. What makes all of this remarkable is that the moon is still surprising us. It is the celestial body humans know best after Earth. We have observed it for centuries, walked on it, mapped it, and studied it in extraordinary detail. Yet discoveries continue reminding us of an uncomfortable truth. Seeing something often is not the same as fully understanding it. If the moon still hides unexpected resources, unresolved geological questions, and future strategic value, then our nearest neighbor remains far more mysterious than many assumed. That realization extends beyond the moon itself. Because if the world closest to Earth can still challenge our assumptions, then the rest of the solar system may hold even greater surprises. The moon is no longer just a relic hanging in the sky. It is emerging as a place of new knowledge, future opportunity, and unanswered questions. For a long time humanity looked at the moon as the end of a journey. Now it increasingly looks like the beginning of one. The next era of exploration may not start on Mars. It may begin with what we discover on the lunar surface next, and if that future truly begins on the moon, then the discoveries being made today may eventually be remembered as the first signs of a much larger transformation. For decades, space exploration was driven mostly by science, prestige, and curiosity. Nations raced to reach orbit, land on distant worlds, and prove technological power. But the emerging lunar era is different. This time, exploration is increasingly connected to infrastructure, sustainability, and long-term presence. The moon sits only a few days away from Earth. Communication delays are small, missions are more manageable, and resupply is possible. Compared to distant destinations, it offers a practical environment for testing the systems humanity would need for permanent expansion into space. That is why interest in the lunar South Pole continues growing. Some regions near the poles experience near-constant sunlight on elevated terrain, while nearby shadowed craters may preserve ice deposits that remained untouched for billions of years. Together, these conditions create one of the most attractive environments for future exploration efforts. Energy, water, and stable operations in one region could change the entire logic of human activity beyond Earth. Imagine a future where lunar stations process local materials, create fuel, support scientific laboratories, and prepare missions heading deeper into the solar system. Instead of launching every mission directly from Earth, explorers might one day depart from infrastructure built on the moon itself. In that scenario, the moon becomes more than a destination. It becomes a gateway. And gateways change history. Human civilization has always expanded through access points, ports, trade routes, rivers, and transportation networks. The moon could become humanity's first extraterrestrial version of that idea. But with opportunity also comes competition. As interest increases, questions about ownership, access, cooperation, and resource use become more important. International agreements encourage peaceful exploration. Yet many details about future operations remain unresolved. Who develops infrastructure first? Who gains access to key locations? How will resources be shared? These questions may shape the next phase of space exploration just as much as engineering itself. Perhaps that is why recent lunar discoveries created such a strong reaction worldwide. They were not simply scientific updates. They were reminders that the moon still matters, maybe more than ever before. For generations it looked silent and finished. Now it appears active in a different way, active as a source of knowledge, strategy, and future possibility. The moon has watched humanity throughout all of history. Now humanity may be preparing to return the gaze in a completely new way. And what we find there over the coming decades could influence not only science, but the direction of civilization itself. And perhaps the most surprising part of this story is how quickly the perception of the moon has changed. Not long ago, many people viewed lunar exploration as a return to history, a modern version of the Apollo era, driven by nostalgia and national achievement. The moon seemed like a chapter humanity had already completed. But that assumption is fading. Today, the moon is increasingly being discussed in terms of resources, logistics, infrastructure, and long-term expansion. The language has changed. Exploration is no longer only about reaching a place. It is about what can be built there. This shift is important because history shows that every major expansion of civilization begins with capability. The ability to travel farther. The ability to stay longer. The ability to build. The moon may become the first place beyond Earth where all three begin to merge. Scientists continue studying polar ice, underground composition, surface chemistry, and ancient impact history because every answer reveals something larger. The Moon is not only a destination for future missions. It is also a record of the early solar system preserved across billions of years. Unlike Earth, where weather and geology constantly reshape the surface, the Moon preserves history in extraordinary detail. Ancient impacts remain visible. Old layers survive. Records of violent events still exist across its landscape. In many ways, the Moon acts like a time capsule of the solar system's past. And understanding that past may help humanity understand its future.